Let's talk about Suella Braverman. What is the Labour Party's position on this? Is it just simply an opportunity for you to give a bit of a kicking to a Prime Minister who's been in the job for 24 hours, or are there more serious security concerns here?
Well, look, the Home Secretary is the most serious job you could have in our state. This is a person who makes judgments about terrorism and counter-terrorism, who makes judgment about very, very serious offenders and whether they should be allowed out of prison. And for that reason, it's someone who, I'm afraid, judgment is critically important. Now we find out overnight that Suella Braverman has been engaged in multiple breaches, not just one. That she sent from her private email account to backbenchers, wives and others, documents that were effectively official, confidential or sensitive. I'm afraid this is a lapse of judgment that quite rightly she was sacked for. The question is, why was she brought back? What was the advice of the Cabinet Secretary to the Prime Minister when he suggested that she should be brought back? He should share that advice, but it's clear to me that she should be sacked and there should be a full inquiry into what's gone on.
I mean, clearly, the reason for her resignation, sacking, you've just heard me and the Tory party chairman having a bit of a disagreement over which it was. But if she did step away from her position and that she has reflected on her mistakes, doesn't Mr Zahawi have a point? Doesn't everyone deserve a second chance at some point?
A Home Secretary making decisions about terrorism isn't allowed to make mistakes. Mm-hmm. A Home Secretary making decisions about serious criminals and whether they should come out...
Who's failing to register 16 items on the register of members' interest gets a second chance.
Can I finish the point? Whether they should come out of prison, serious offenders, isn't allowed to make a mistake. Mm-hmm. I'm afraid this is an unacceptable breach, but more importantly, the new Prime Minister said he would govern with integrity, mm-hmm. professionalism and accountability. Where is the accountability? What is that advice? How is this about integrity? And how is it professional that someone who's sacked after 6 days is brought back into the government? Why? Because it's in the interest of the Conservative Party, not because it's in the interest of the general public or our country.
So what then is the Labour Party going to do about this? I mean, you're asking for officials' advice to be published. I mean, the government will resist that as strongly as they possibly can. So I'm just wondering how you move forward with this story, apart from, next Wednesday, Keir Starmer has another dig at Rishi Sunak.
Well, look, let's be clear. There have been many breaches of the ministerial code over the last several years by this government and its predecessors. On all occasions, we've raised those. Sometimes we have eventually seen ministers leave their office. I suspect that Suella Braverman her position is now looking very, very fragile indeed.
Sure, but I'll repeat the point I made whilst you were answering, whilst I was rudely interrupting you. I mean, an inquiry once found you guilty of registering 6 interests at late. Failing to register 16 interests on time, including payments for tickets to American football and boxing matches in London. Now, they said that this was an inadvertent mistake. I will concede that. But you got a second chance, so why shouldn't she?
Because I'm not Home Secretary. I'm not running the government. Let me finish the point. You asked me the question. Let me finish the point.
Come on.
I was tardy. I apologise. That I was not sending secret official documents to strangers. That is totally unacceptable, and it does not compare with that breach that I was found guilty and a few others were earlier in the summer.
Let's reflect on where Labour and the Conservative government are at the moment. We, of course, had Rishi Sunak's first PMQs yesterday. By general acclaim, he felt to have done a decent job, certainly significantly better than the Liz Truss when she was at the dispatch box. But what was your view of what took place across the Commons chamber yesterday?
Well, look, let's be clear. Liz Truss was staggeringly awful. Most new Prime Ministers get a bounce. She was so bad that her bounce effectively came to the opposition. So the bar was pretty low for Rishi Sunak. Look, the truth is, the key thing is there were several questions that he did not answer. It was put to him why Suella was back. He didn't answer the question. There were questions about why he said previously that he had moved money from deprived areas to parts of the country that didn't need it. He didn't answer those questions. And of course, it's our job as opposition to be pretty exacting, to put him to the test, and Keir Starmer will continue to do that over the coming days. What is clear is he still has a divided party. He says that he's trying to unite his party. That's why he's brought Suella Braverman back. This is not in the national interest, it's in his party's interest.
Just reflect, though, on some of which we heard in the chamber yesterday. Some very warm, some very actually moving testimony to Rishi Sunak's status as the first British Prime Minister of British Asian origin. I do wonder what your view is then of that tweet from your colleague on the Labour benches, Nadia Whittome, which said this: Rishi Sunak as Prime Minister isn't a win for Asian representation. He's a multi-millionaire who, as Chancellor, cuts taxes on bank profits whilst overseeing the biggest drop in living standards since 1956. Black, white or Asian, if you work for a living, he is not on your side. What did you make of that?
My view is very, very clear. My parents arriving here as part of that Windrush generation in the same era as I think Rishi Sunak's grandparents arrived, they would never have dreamed that we would have a moment where a man of colour is stepping outside number 10. Of course, it's a hugely significant moment. I think there have been advances in all the political parties in terms of diversity.
She's been directed to delete the tweet after it drew considerable backlash, and there are now a suggestion that she will have the whip withdrawn. What is your view? Why are Labour not?
I'm not the chief whip. That is a matter for for our whips. I think she has apologised. She's deleted the tweet.
No, a spokesman for Ms Whittome told the BBC a little earlier she would not apologise for the tweet and had not been asked to do so by the party. The reason I push on this is that we also had Rupa Huq, obviously, during the conference season, calling the former Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng superficially black because of his upbringing. I'm just beginning to wonder whether or not the Labour Party has a bit of a problem when it comes to race.
Look, come on, that's patently ridiculous. Let's be clear. Let me tell you why.
I'm sorry. Calling Kwasi Kwarteng superficially black, and you're laughing at that.
Let me tell you why. The Labour Party remains the most diverse party in Parliament. Rishi Sunak becoming Prime Minister is a monumental and wonderful thing. It builds on Tony Blair bringing forward people like Paul Boateng, Valerie Amos, Patricia Scotland. It builds on all of that. We have our Scottish leader is a man of colour, of course.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So it builds on all of that. All of our political parties are now diverse. That is something I welcome.
I just wonder why Rupa Huq said what she said and why Nadia Whittome said what she said then.
Well, look, both of them have apologised. They were wrong to do that.
I don't think Nadia has.
You will always find in all political parties, people on the backbenches will say things that they later regret, particularly in this age of social media. But let us delight in the diversity, the visible diversity that we see in Parliament across all political parties.
And whilst we have you, I do want to spend a little bit of time on your brief, and of course Qatar, and the comments that we heard yesterday from the Foreign Secretary, James Cleverly, appearing to suggest that gay football fans travelling to the World Cup needed to pay additional concern to the cultural concerns of the Qataris. What did you make of that?
Well, I thought that his statement was tone deaf. Look...
No, isn't the problem with FIFA, though, for awarding the World Cup to that country?
Let me finish the point. Look, we want a situation in which all athletes and all members of the public that go and enjoy the World Cup in Qatar are able to be there and be themselves, whomever they love, to hold the hands of their loved ones, to walk up a road, to sit and watch and be who they are. And the idea that they should hide, which is the implication of what James Cleverly said, hide who they are, is totally, totally unacceptable. And it's why I think it isn't right for members of Parliament to accept hospitality, to go to Qatar, given their record, not just on issues of LGBTQ rights, but also the way that they have treated migrant workers.
David Lammy, always good to have you in the studio. Thanks for joining us.